welcome Mike and Rachael Novak. I'm so excited to have you guys on today.
Thank you so much.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, what an honor.
And welcome to all of you guys who are joining us on Zoom and on Facebook. My name is Vija Williams, and I am with Kinney Companies, and we do these agent training webinars every single Wednesday, like clockwork at noon Pacific time. And we just take people that are doing amazing things and we spend time with them so we can learn. So today I have really one of the most exciting interviews I think that I'm going to have this year, you guys. And I've known you for a couple of years, but just, watching your growth, kind of alongside you has enabled me to really see you shine, I think, and to kind of go through the journey with you. So I've got Mike and Rachael Novak, and they are based in Everett, Snohomish County, Washington State, which is a suburb a little bit north of Seattle. And what I'll say is that they're a remarkably successful team. You guys are, 120 million-ish a year in volume, which is a massive, massive size and massive success. But I think we should start at the beginning a little bit. And I think we should tell everybody what got you into real estate and really what did it look like that first year when you guys leaped into real estate. And I think that's where we should start, you guys.
Yeah, for sure. So I got licensed I started school in December of 2016, got licensed in January of 2017. Rachael joined me about a month later in getting her license as well. What led up to that was a whole bunch of chaos, though. We owned a 8-chain restaurant. It was like a local bar and grill kind of concept with locations all the way up as far north as Bellingham, which is like the northern part of Washington, all the way down to Tacoma, which is like, about halfway down Washington. And that company is something we owned for about 10 years. We acquired it in 2007, when we were in real estate development, just as an asset to own. But we took that one location, we blew it up to these 8 locations over that period of 10 years. However, in 2016, there was this legislation passed in Washington where minimum wage got pushed to $15 an hour. And we had 450 employees at that time. And that was a big setback for us. So it changed our overhead structure by close to $50,000 per month. And I felt like that was kind of a ticking time bomb for the restaurant industry. Since that time, the restaurant industry has gone through a whole bunch of other challenges with COVID and shutdowns and staff shortages and all these other issues as well. But this was kind of like the first kind of sign to me that this industry is a real problem. And because this is how we make our money and how our family survives, the two of us have a very big problem that we need to solve. And so we didn't see any sustainability to the restaurant industry, and we pivoted over to real estate at that time. I told Rachael, I said, I think we're totally screwed. And I think that if we don't get licensed, this was in November of 2016, that I think that we're going to have massive problems. We have an opportunity to do something we love. Like, we both loved real estate when I was a real estate developer and builder, and Rachael was in transaction coordination back in the early 2000s. And we wanted to get back into it. So
let me interject for a second on that, just because it sounds really smooth. Like, oh, he had this great idea and I just went along with it. No, let's be totally honest here, that I was like, honey, you're crazy. we just lost, like, there was the big crash, if everybody remembers, in 2007 to 2009. And I said, honey, I'm not sure about that. Like, I was very, very hesitant at first. But he'll make a joke, of course, that like one of the best sales he's ever made was getting me to get my license again. So we did.
Well, one of the best sales he ever made was getting you to marry him.
There you go. That's the first best sale. I'm a salesman at heart, and that's the best sale I ever made in my life. The second best sale I ever made was getting her to get licensed and go into business together in real estate. So,
that's right. So I think that it warrants talking about the dramatic fashion with which the restaurants, went down, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it was ugly. Like, it was nasty. There was a lot of like court battle stuff going on. For those people that have lost a whole lot of money in business and have, gotten really dragged through the mud as that goes down, it's not pleasant. If you look at like Fortune magazine, you see all these entrepreneurs that just crush it and they turn into billionaires. What they don't tell you is that 9 out of 10 people never even are successful in business, and such a small little sliver ever get to that level. So they don't talk about the 9 out of 10 that fail. And to see that firsthand, It was devastating. It definitely was a challenge for us. Our marriage, it was a challenge to me personally. Like, to me, it felt like my back was against the wall. Like, my job as a dad and as a husband is to provide for our family. And it was like, oh shit, it's on. You know what I mean? Like, this is war. Like, I need to step up and do something about this, you know?
Yeah, and for, if you were here in Seattle, it was all over the news. I mean, it was all over the major news networks and in the newspapers. And I mean,
There was 7 at our front door. I mean, it was pretty ugly.
I just think it warrants kind of making sure everyone understands how dramatic that really was. I mean, 450 employees, and I mean, it was a pretty big deal.
Yeah. And we didn't want to end it that way. We wanted to just kind of slowly like wind it down, but we were put into a position. I'm not going to get into like the legal details of it, but that we were put in a position by a court where they basically took over control of it and said, you're closing it right now. And there was no decision that was left to me as the owner of the company to make at that point. It was like, hey, you either shut it down or you're going to have a whole world of legal problems on your hands. And so that was May, I want to say it was May 11th or May 17th of 2017.
May 11th. Yeah.
May 11th. I mean, it was a horrible day like that. I mean, Cairo 7 was at our front door. We were all over the news and Facebook and social media and everything else. And it was a very dramatic day for sure.
Well, for the people who, are people persons like myself, right? I am a total people person. I love people. That was one of the reasons I was hesitant to get back into real estate, because I truly care so much about people that like I inherit the feelings, and I have a lot of empathy for that. And so when the court forced us to close it, they really just closed it and then told us that they were doing that. We put 350 people, families, out of work in one day. So that weight was so heavy on our shoulders. It was such a cloud that was following us around, probably behind the news cameras that were in my driveway. It wasn't lost on us that, this was a big deal to a lot of people, and it was devastating to us.
It was definitely like a heartbreaking scenario. Like, I mean, it definitely broke a little bit of my heart. I know it did with Rachel's too. Like, I mean, it's not like you're losing a person, but you're losing like a big chunk of your soul and a big part of your identity. And that's really how it felt. It felt like a death almost.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you for sharing that, you guys. I know that's not, we're going to move on from that and give a, really, hopeful story, not without its share of fails on the way. But I think that to really understand your story, you have to kind of understand that. I think you have to understand the origin of it. Because what's amazing to me is what you went and did like that same month, basically, right? Isn't that right? That same month is when you kind of been doing real estate, ramping up a little bit. And then what happened that same month?
Yeah. So, like I said, we got licensed earlier in 2017. And so we started kind of building the rhythms and habits that we thought would be successful in real estate. We got a real estate coach. We started calling people. We started doing online marketing. We started running our database and our CRM and all these, like we started focusing on habits that we knew would be successful, or that we at least thought would be successful. And it started compounding. Like, we'd get like a sale a month, then 2, then 3. And then finally by May of 2017, we didn't know it at the time, but we actually closed over $100,000 of GCI. So that same month that we lost this like $10 million a year company, we also had a really big breakthrough in real estate for ourselves. I mean, talk about a roller coaster of a ride. We didn't realize that until almost October of 2017, because we were just in like straight pure survival mode.
Yeah, that's right. And so I do think that, right there, you talk about grit. Grit is working as hard as you guys would have obviously had to work to hit 100K GCI in the midst of all of that happening. I cannot imagine getting it together enough to go on listing appointments, buyer showings. I mean, you just can't gloss over that. That is really hard work. Like, kudos to you guys.
Thank you. It was. Oh, go ahead, Rich.
I was gonna say it was definitely an entire family trajectory, right? I mean, we have at that point, I've got an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and an almost 2-year-old, and I'm picking them up from school and daycare when I have to at 3 p.m. and then they're doing homework and watching Netflix on my iPad in the back seat while I show houses 7 days a week. I mean, we couldn't, because of what we were going through, we couldn't justify the expense of, nannies and babysitters. Like it was all on us. And, thankfully our children look back at that very fondly because they got to spend a lot of time with mom. But there's a lot of emotions that goes along with that. But we were, like you said, like we were just flexing our grit muscles, right? We were practicing resilience and saying, look, like this does not define us. We absolutely are determined to, be successful, make an impact, and help people in any way that we possibly know how. And that's what we knew how to do was, do real estate and do the actions and be as consistent as possible and not wallow, but just get up and put both feet on the floor and keep taking steps forward every single day. So that's what we did.
I mean, Rachael, that's warrior status right there. That is unbelievable right there. 3 kids, not even with childcare. I don't even know what to say. Doing all of the production you're doing, it's amazing. Do you think that shaped? Because I know you specialize. You're the listing specialist, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that was part of the reason that you just had to figure out the most efficient way forward?
I totally think so. I mean, it came down to organization. It came down to compartmentalization. And then just really being able to do the same things every day that I found to be successful and where I got results. Mike and I have always been extremely numbers driven, Michael especially in the restaurant business, and we translated that into real estate. So it was different for us to not know where we were until months later because we were in fight or flight. So we're for sure putting up that fight and being able to just compartmentalize, like, from these hours to these hours, like I only get to be in the office from 9 to 2 because my kids, I have, care and school for my kids at that point. So whatever I can possibly do in that 5 hours to make an impact and generate business that I need to generate, I'm going to do. And I think a lot of people, when we came into the office, really didn't like us a lot because we weren't very social and we didn't really hang around the water cooler and have a lot of conversations with other people. And, they took that how they took that. We were on a mission to make sure that, we were building what we needed to build and what we needed to do. So it kind of was what it was at that point.
What were your roles in the restaurant business? I'm curious. What did you each, Mike and Rachael, what did you each kind of own in that world? I'm curious how that translated.
It changed a lot as the company grew because, when we acquired the company, they had 15 employees and it ended at like the height of it was 450 before we started closing some of the locations that weren't profitable. But so at the height of it, I was just the CEO of the company. Like I was actually, I stepped back and was fairly hands off beyond the visioning and the planning and the kind of financial modeling of the business. But we had a CFO who was super capable. We had a director of operations and we had some like real corporate structure that oversaw all the operations of the locations. So eventually I became pretty hands off and really just worked with the like executive level leaders on a mentoring, a coaching, and kind of an accountability level. It was really the extent of my involvement at that point. And Rachael had been out of it for 3-4 years at that point.
Yeah, 3 years. Yep.
Yeah, she stepped out of it when we had 3 locations.
Yeah. So when we simultaneously found out that we had our 3rd surprise blessing, and we also had multiple locations. So for the years prior to that, I was a general manager of our Seattle location. So that was my capacity. And then I stepped out to focus on family.
All right. So just making sure we're on the timeline. Okay. 2017, we closed down the restaurants. You do, I believe it was 79 units. At the time, that was about 25 million in volume. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So then walking into 2018, what did you do in 2018? Remember, I just want everyone to remember 79 units in 2017.
No TC, no.
Yeah, we ended up in 2018 closing 220 transactions. And we had added a couple of buyer agents and we'd started building out our admin operations, including like listing coordination, listing management, transaction management, and also an ISA arm to our business as well. So those were like the big pieces and levers that we moved to go from 79 to 220 in 1 year.
Did you go into this thinking you wanted a big team?
We did. I mean, like everyone that I have followed on social media at that time was like, hey, mega team is the way to go. Like, basically build this huge team, get out of production, and then just go travel the world. And it sounds super cool. Like I was like, hey, that sounds awesome. Let's do that.
Sounds amazing.
Who wouldn't want to do that? And so that's kind of the direction I went. And, the coach I had at the time was really kind of like pushing me to do that. Like I literally remember him taking me out of lead routing on a coaching call together because I refused to take myself out. I was like, I don't want to be out of lead routing. I like talking to people. I like setting appointments. I like the production side of business. He's like, to move forward, you have to get out of production. You have to be there as a coach and leader for your team, simply focused on working on the business. And that strategy works for some people, you know, and that's what we tried to do.
Well, and to clarify, that was kind of the end of 2017, early 2018 that we adopted that mindset of a big team. You know, when we were going through everything in 2017 and kind of moving through, lost the restaurants, we're now kind of, okay, we've got some pretty consistent business going on where we're closing 6 to 15 deals a month between the two of us. We had no interest in bringing anybody on. It was just the two of us. We were going to conquer the world, backs against the wall, come out.
You're going to be lean and mean, not get up to 350 employees again. I'm guessing.
100%. We were burned, right? And it wasn't so much that we didn't, you know, like people. It had everything to do with the fact that we didn't want to manage people. And so we had just done that, right? But it was this coach who said, you know, he said very frankly, you know, you guys are kind of being selfish. You have so many processes in place and so many skills to teach people that you're almost kind of being selfish, not bringing people into your business to have a bigger impact on, you know, clients. And he was totally right. I mean, it was a big wake up call for both of us to say like, okay, let's get out of our own way and let's see what we can do here.
Yeah, for sure. Wow, that's incredible. So we went from 79 units in 2017 to 220, a whopping 220. It's just a massive growth, right? And, you know, 220. Can you kind of, what did your team look like? Sorry, 2018, scratch that. What did your team look like at the end of 2018 going into 19 as far as how many people were on it?
I think we had 5 agents or so at that time, didn't we, Rachel? Like at the end of 2018?
The end of 2018 was kind of when we decided to start ramping up. So we started, we were only 5 or 6 agents, but we were very aggressively starting to bring people on.
Yeah, I stepped out of production at the end of 2018, and that's when we like brought on a recruiter, you know, to really kickstart our hiring operations. And we really started looking at how to scale and add agents in bulk and like really go from like, our goal is basically to, from 5 to 20 agents as quickly as possible, which is what we did.
Okay. So we went from 5 to 20 agents. And then what did your operations and success team look like, an ISA team?
Yeah, so we had 4 ISAs, we had 20 agents, and I was out of production, just coaching and leading our team. We had a transaction coordinator, we had a listing coordinator, we had a marketing coordinator as well. And I want to say we had like a PCSOI person too at that time.
A recruiter at that time, yeah.
Oh, a recruiter at the time, yeah. Because that's really where our focus was at. And so that didn't work out as we had expected it to. You know, like we had some great training and we had, you know, like a lot that we were pouring into people as they joined our team, but it was a discovery moment for me that not everyone wants it as bad as I want it or as bad as Rachel wants it. And that was like weird to me because it's like, well, doesn't everybody want it? Like, you know, that doesn't make any sense to me, but I can't push a rope. Like I can give you the skills and the tools and I can curate the conditions where you can be successful, but you have to consciously make a decision that you want to be successful or you're not going to be at the end of the day. I can't want it more for you than you want it for yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what we experienced. You know, we felt like it was our culture of like an elite team that we're really getting after it really changed and became this kind of like weird vibe where it's just a bunch of average Joes, and average Joes are fine. That's just not the team that we were interested in running.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because going from, you know, you went from 79 to 220 units in 2018, and then in 2019 you did like 229 units, and so
it was less. I think it was 189.
We did 190.
Oh, sorry, scratch that. I said that wrong. So you went down in units. We have like this big bloated team. You know, you're kind of out of production. I have to imagine your profitability and your personal income took a huge dive that year.
Oh, it's total crap. Our profitability went down to 10%. So, I mean, and it was like closer to 30% before.
I'm even amazed it was at 10. I mean, so that's great. Like you got something out of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like that's what happens when you scale is like you have to increase your lead spend, of course. You have to increase your admin spend to support your agents. But then if the agents don't actually get traction and don't start converting, then none of it works because you've got this massive bloated overhead, but you actually haven't changed your top line income,
Well, that's right. So what did how long did you stay in that space and what did you do to make things better?
We were there until about August of 2019. And we looked at each other one day and we just said, what was that, Rach?
I said it was like that entire year. Like we're not quitters. So we kept trying and pushing and having meetings and doing training. And I mean, we were for sure putting everything that we could and knew how to with the coaching that was available to us time into it. And like Michael's going to say, like that August, we kind of stopped and looked at each other and we're like, I don't think this is what we had in mind.
Yeah. It had quickly changed from what we had envisioned as far as a culture goes to something that just wasn't that fun to be a part of. It wasn't fun for us. I don't think it was that fun for the agents either because they felt like they were kind of getting dragged along a little bit, to be honest with you. And so we decided, hey, this is our business. We only get to do this once. We learned the hard way in the restaurant industry that when something's not going right, like you should pivot and you should adjust to what you really want to do. And that's what we did. And so we started setting very aggressive accountability standards with the agents in our team. They had all signed contracts that they would sell 24 homes a year or 2 homes a month. And we started the really tough line of enforcing that standard.
So what did that look like? I mean, what happens if, how many months did they get and what would happen if they weren't pacing for that or if they didn't hit it?
Yeah, so they all had weekly one-on-ones with me, and we'd look at their numbers, weekly and then month to date. And if they were off track, we'd give them some very specific things to do to adjust. And if by the next month they still weren't on track, then we just asked them to leave the team because they just weren't committed.
Yeah. One of the things that I think you're so talented at, Mike, is tracking data and using data to make good decisions. And so once we kind of walk through this timeline, I'd like to go back to that and actually talk a little bit more and get in the weeds a little bit about that. But I kind of want to keep going with the story to kind of give people an understanding of where you guys are now.
Sure.
So you start leaning out and thinning out the team.
Yep.
2018, how long did it last until you kind of had a lean and mean team?
By the end of November, we were back down to 5 agents.
The original 5.
It did not take long because the agents, like a few agents started getting performance rolled off the team. And then everyone else was like, oh crap, like they're not messing around. Like they're not just saying they're going to enforce the standards. They're actually enforcing the standards and we better go run for the hills. And so, people just kind of scattered at that point. And it was a little bit disheartening, but we kind of knew like that's what had to happen. Like that Band-Aid had to be ripped off, So, and it was the same thing with our ISA team as well. Like, they just weren't hitting the appointment threshold we had and it wasn't working out. And so we went away from an ISA model.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're back November, December, right? 2019. We're leading into fun year 2020. What did last year look like for you guys?
So it was awesome. I mean, it was a challenging year. We obviously, like everyone else, we went through COVID and all of the uncertainties that brought with it. We had a whole bunch of contingency plans in place because we had no idea what was going to happen. And like a lot of people, I mean, we thought that this could literally be the end of the world as we know it, and that real estate could like just completely shut down and cease to exist. And so we had plans for everything. There were some really hard decisions we knew that would have to be made if that stuff happened, but we were committed to doing it and making those hard decisions to make sure that our team got through it and survived. So, but the other challenge that we took on in 2020 is we built a house. We had waited for 10 years to build a home and we decided that was the time to do it. Of course, we didn't know COVID was going to happen when we planned to do that, but we had acquired our land and we had gone through the permitting process and everything else.
Tell me you had acquired your lumber before COVID.
We definitely did, yeah. I look at lumber prices now, I'm just like, man, I'm glad we built last year because there's no way we could afford to do it now. So, But we built our house as well. We started it in the middle of March and ended it in early July. So we literally lived in an RV for a couple of months with our kids on the site as we're waiting for a house to finish up. At one point, we didn't have the power brought into the property. And so we had a generator running for the framers. We had the generator running on our RV, and we were shuttling 30 gallons of gas a day up there just to keep things going until our power was brought into the site, because there was delays in getting the power into the property. So it was total chaos, especially with 3 kids. I mean, if it would have been just the 2 of us, I don't think it would have been that bad. But with 3 kids that were also now out of school because of COVID, it was a hell of a challenge.
And back to Rachel warrior status. Rachel, really quick, I got to framework this for all the ladies out there. You're a mom, you're taking on the homeschool thing. You are the listing specialist in production of your team in a trailer with sometimes no electricity. I don't even know what to say.
So, I mean, to kind of frame the perspective, we had been going full board to make this thing happen. We got notified that our permit was ready to pick up the day that Governor Inslee in Washington State closed everything down that day. So
of course, it wouldn't be any other day.
Yeah, we rushed to pick up our permit, and it was thankfully we had already acquired the contractors and paid for a lot of the lumber and a lot of these things beforehand, so they were considered essential at that time, so they could keep going, right, because of we had purchased those things. But when that happened, we're living in the RV. I've got 2 kids in elementary school. They both, got Chromebooks issued out from their school so that they can, attend class and get the work done they needed to. I have a preschooler who could no longer go to preschool. So I've got preschool books and, cool math game activities on my iPad that she can do. So most of the days, at least the mornings and some of the afternoons, was literally my kids around our tiny little, table, and then me and my 4-year-old sitting on the couch, and I'm working and making phone calls and connecting with people. So there was a couple of weeks, of course, that we didn't do anything. We're just connecting with people, and listings are wanting to cancel and clients are wanting to put off listing, and people are freaking out, and that's fine. And then when we were considered essential again as real estate agents, it was a flurry of people going, I gotta sell now. So, I mean, it was extremely stressful. But at the end of the day, we kind of had that same fight or flight feel as we did in 2017. It was guys, we tell our kids, look, we are a team, all of us, we all contribute to this life. We all contribute to making it work for each other. So I thankfully have girlfriends that, were comfortable coming out and hanging with my kids for a couple of hours. So I would book all of my appointments within a 3-hour period every day, so that I only had to be gone during that time and could be there for the kids' school. I did a lot of Zoom consultations and a lot of walkthroughs and FaceTiming with clients to their home to be, coaching them on editing the home and that kind of thing. And then thankfully, I also had a listing partner that we had brought on that October prior, who was, extremely knowledgeable, and she was able to run errands for me and pick keys up and that kind of thing. So it was with some leverage, and a good village, and just, again, pure grit that I was able to not, go crazy in a trailer with 3 kids all day.
I mean, warrior status is all I have to say about that. How many units and what was your volume last year?
246 transactions, about 120 million, and about 3.3 million in GCI.
And so, that's incredible. What did you personally, what was your personal production in that?
I was just pulling up my CSU. So I did 80 transactions last year, and I think Rachel did mid-50s.
Yeah, 52.
I just need that to sink in for everybody. I mean, that is Rachael Novak, you are my hero. I mean, that's an incredible story. Many people worked while homeschooling kids. I don't think many people worked with homeschooling 3 kids in a trailer with sometimes no electricity and that many units in real estate. It's really incredible, my friend. Like that is just, it's an incredible moment, and really proud of you. I mean, that's the real deal right there, right? That is the real deal. That's the American spirit right there, right? I love it. All right. So leading into 2021, what are you guys going to do this year, do you think?
So we are trying the ISA model again. Like I hate quitting on something. And so I feel like I've learned my lessons on what I did wrong last time. And it was on me as the lead of our team to do it right. And I didn't. So I want to try it again. And I want to apply those lessons learned and rebuild our ISA operations. So we're moving forward with that. We use a model that we call the partner model. We just have showing partners and listing partners so that our agents are highly leveraged. So there's about one partner per agent on our team. We have 15 people total on our team, and only 5 of us are producing agents. So there's a lot of admin and partner support making up the other 10 positions that are on our team. So we're not adding any agents. Like, we've discovered that we're probably not the best fit for new agents. I know someone asked that in the chat box, like, was that something that we found out? And then the answer is yes. Like, we're not the best fit for a brand new agent in real estate. And to be honest with you, being a brand new agent in real estate is a really tough place to be. Like, there's a reason why so many new agents fail in this business. And even with our systems and coaching and structure, we've seen a lot of them fail as well. So we took a step back after that experience of rolling all those agents off. We asked ourselves, like, how could we do this better? And so the solution that we came up with in coaching with Eric Hatch, he's done this on his team. He shared it with us. We didn't just completely create it, but it was this model where when your partners have been with your team for 2 years, they have the opportunity to graduate into an agent. So you're basically home growing your own bench. And it works really well because you've got these people that have a base salary instead of a commission income. And so that they can actually have a way to make the bridge from being a server or being in some other kind of industry into real estate, and then be mentored by a really experienced, seasoned, high producing agent. And by the end of that 2 years, they're doing really well. They understand our culture. They understand the process. Like Eric says, like, you're going to make doctor level money in this business if you do it at a high level, and to not spend and commit those 2 years makes absolutely no sense.
So when you talk about being a partner, are you basically saying showing agent and just kind of assisting a lead agent in
that capacity? Yeah, they show houses, they sit inspections, they send clients new listings and come on the market. They're just leverage for the agent, basically.
Okay, yeah, got it. And so, so basically it's taking your star producers and giving them leverage, really bolstering them up. And I would also argue that's creating an environment they probably don't want to leave, because your top 2 agents have been with you since the very beginning. Is that correct?
They have, yeah. I mean, they're awesome culture fits.
They are awesome.
And the other one, like, so we have 5 total agents. Like I said, 2 of us are Rachel and I, and then the other 3, they've all been on our team for at least 3 years now. So like, there's a lot of stickability to the 3 of them, and they're just awesome culture fits to our team. Like, they add a lot to the table. We add a lot back to their world as well. There's just a very good balance.
Well, and they add a lot to our office. You know what I love about your guys' team? Like, if I'm going to go to, a Keller Williams Everett event or something, they're going to be there. I just love that about your team. Like, those guys are awesome. Like, they're team players, not just on the team, but they give back to their office. You guys are constantly saying, Vija, how can I help? Like, can I teach? Can I, what can you do? I'm always hitting you up for this kind of a thing. You're always, you're always willing to do it. So let's talk about that. Like, what is your culture, and how, why is it that you're all similar like that? You're doing something to attract that and to keep that happening. Like, what is it? How would you define your culture?
Yeah, I mean, like we kind of talked about earlier this week, there's a lot that goes into, making it, on our team. You have to be okay with subscribing to this lifestyle. Like, you have to like it, right? A lot of real estate agents, I feel like, really, Blake Ray-Ban says, you have to be okay with truly choosing it every single day. A lot of real estate agents get really burnt out and really tired of showing on the weekends, and really, tired of the coaching and tired of people talking and all that kind of thing. However, the reason that what we call on our team, the elite agents, the experienced agents on our team are thriving is because when you build in leverage and you actually work as a team, it's almost mandatory that, two different things. One, that you take 1 or 2 days off a week, and 2, that you do a long weekend with your spouse or your family every 90 days. It's absolutely crucial to the longevity of your life and your career in this industry to be able to do that. The second big part, besides just that we're really intense and you have to like the lifestyle, is that you have to be okay with true accountability. There's a lot of people that have come on our team, a lot of people that we talk to, a lot of agents and people that we interview about, possibly coming on the team, that say, yes, I want the accountability. I want somebody to keep me accountable. And in our experience over years and years of owning businesses is that people don't want to be held accountable. They don't want you to bring up the fact that they're not hitting their goals. They don't want to talk about that they're falling short of the goals that they've set for themselves. And everybody that's on our team now, when you bring it up to them and we're meeting one-on-one or doing the 411s each week with our teammates that are in our direct report, you bring up what they haven't met and they're like, you're totally right. Like, what can I do? What do I need to do? How can I fix this? And they do it. They take action. Our motto really is that on our team, accountability is the highest form of love. We would not keep you accountable to the things that you say that you want to do unless we truly care about you meeting those goals, right? It's truly like if nothing else you take away, that's what our team culture is. It's accountability and it's really love. It's love really for each other.
Well, and you're also into kind of fierce, brutal honesty too, right?
Yeah, that's an understanding. Yeah.
We've discovered that people that are willing to sit down and have a really hard conversation instead of just pretending like there's no issue, they tend to be more vulnerable and they tend to really share with you why they're stuck, and they're more receptive to the hard conversation on why you think they're stuck and how to get out of it as well. I did a 4-on-1 with one of my direct reports a week and a half ago, and I had this like laundry list of things we had to go over, and this was like going to be a really hard 4-on-1. I had to like psych myself up for this 4-on-1 just because I hate having those really hard conversations where we have to deliver a bunch of bad news. I'm okay with like a few things, but this was like a long list. And we sat down together, and in the first 15 minutes, I didn't even get a word in. She just like poured her whole heart out on everything that she didn't think she was doing to live up to the standards and the expectations. Like, she took total ownership for it. I didn't have to say a thing. She hit everything on my list and then some. And to me, that's the culture.
So what do you do with that? Do you work with her, or do we, what's next with something like that?
You totally work with that person. I mean, you have to first of all appreciate their vulnerability, that they're willing to share with you what's going on. A lot of times, like, personal things carry into work, and it's just a matter of acknowledging that and figuring out how you need to compartmentalize that distraction or whatever is going on in your personal life to get back on track in business. And that's all it was. But with that comes the accountability again. Like, you have to hit the next number. You know what I mean? Like, there's not going to be a free pass on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about, personal and business, and a lot of people in a business setting really kind of get this, have this notion, especially in an office setting where, you hang your issues at the door on your way in. Like, you don't bring your crap to the office. You don't bring it in and take everybody down a level, right? In our team, it's like exactly the opposite. Like, we do a huddle every single day. It's something that we started literally the week that we were all shut down with COVID. Was we immediately implemented every single day a Zoom huddle where every single teammate gets on, and we spend 15 minutes hearing about their highs and lows for the previous day and what their plan is and intention is for the current day. So it keeps us all really focused and accountable, and it gives everybody an opportunity to say, like, you know what, like, the word good, like, oh, yesterday was good, is literally outlawed. Like, either my day was absolutely freaking awful yesterday, or, hey, I had a fantastic day and here's why. Like, we want to know, because it's impossible to really subscribe to this lifestyle if you cannot, like Mike said, be vulnerable and let your teammates know that something's going on and it's affecting my work life, and help me build the tools in my tool belt to compartmentalize so that I can still get things done, but deal or grieve or deal with the emotions that I need to, right? It's a very fine line, and we understand that it's blurred, and that's how we live.
Well, business is personal and personal is business for us. Like, the two completely interconnect.
One of my favorite quotes by Mark Willis, former CEO of Keller Williams, is he used to say that business growth is autobiographical. Yeah, it's a good one, isn't it? So it's the same thing. You're just taking it collectively. I think it's fantastic. Shifting gears a little bit, I do kind of want to dig in and get a little bit into the weeds, Mike, with you on your data and how you use it. But I think it would be helpful to kind of start with lead sources. So when you first started, I think right out of the gate, you were internet leads was a primary source. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, to me, like there's lead sources where you're trading your time. You're not like paying a lot of money for it, or it's free, but you're going to have to dedicate a massive amount of time. And then there's leads that are expensive, like you're going to outlay a lot of money, but there's not going to be time invested to procure that lead. And for me, I've always been really busy. Like I was busy in the restaurants and stuff like that. I had a lot going on, and I didn't have the free time to go do things like door knocking or sit at an open house. Like I wanted to go on the offense with a phone. Like that's my style. I have, part of my affirmations is that I run to the phone just because I believe in it. Like I want to connect with people. I want to help them, and I know I can help them. And that's where I started from day one. And that's where I'm still at today with it.
Yeah, that's great. And so you mentioned ISA. So at a certain point, you work with ISAs in that process. Do they nurture, and do your agents turn it into an appointment, or are your ISAs appointment setters?
So we still don't have any ISAs. We're just working on rebuilding it. Like we've slowed down our hiring process via big time. We now take about 2.5 months to bring somebody on the team on average. It's a super slow process. Like that person has to really want it and really hang out in that hiring process to make it on our team. But that's very intentional. So we've got somebody that's like pretty far along, but they're still not on our team yet. So our agents are our ISAs.
Oh, I think you will be soon.
Yeah. Blake that commented a minute ago, he's kind of an ISA for our team. He's also an agent in our office. He just kind of helps our team out with leads. But ISAs typically would nurture the lead up to the appointment, and the agent would take over for it. But since we don't have ISAs right now, our agents do both.
Okay, got it. So let's dive into that. What data have you found over the last 5 years of building this? What data have you found useful to track, Mike? And what do you kind of put the pressure on tracking? Let's start there with what you're tracking.
Yeah, so I think that there's a couple of different levels to tracking you need to think about, because you need to think about being a business owner first and foremost. So you need to think about tracking your expenses, like how much you're spending on lead sources, and then how much your cost per closing is per lead source. Like that's one of the things I look at all the time is if I close a Zillow lead, like what's my average cost per closing? If I spend $8,000 and I have 4 closings, my cost per closing is $2,000.
I mean, you're really tracking CAC, customer acquisition cost.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of people get caught up in cost per lead or whatever. And I don't really care as much about cost per lead as much as I care about the cost per closing. So I look at that a lot. I look at our agents' mix of what percentage of their business is PCSOI, like past clients or sphere of influence, versus paid for business. That's something I look at very closely. And then on the actual agent level or ISA level, I look at things like appointment set, appointment met, appointment signed, pending, and closed.
Okay, got it. So how do you use, let's start with ROI. Let's start with your lead sources, right? So you're tracking how much you spend and then closings. Yep. You're not really tracking anything else beyond that. That's how you're tracking ROI.
Our system does, it breaks it down to cost per lead as well. But to me, it's not that important. The cost per closing is way more what I'm focused on. Some people are focused on CPL. I'm just not.
Do you, are you comfortable showing a dashboard to us right now and just kind of giving us eyes on that?
Yeah, let me bring this over and share my screen. Let's see here. So this is Sisu. Sisu is an advanced analytics tracker. This is my personal dashboard for 2020. And
for all there, we have a lot of Keller Williams and Ben Kinney agents. Brevity Command, it doesn't really matter. They happen to use Sisu. I wouldn't worry so much about. There's a lot of trackers out there, right? So the important thing is you get one you use, right, rather than promoting a specific brand. Okay.
Right, exactly. So you can see my appointment set, met, signed, under contract, and then closed. And it breaks it down like, what are your ratios? So you can really provide some coaching, or if it's for you personally, you can really self-evaluate and hold yourself accountable to what you're doing.
Let's go to conversations right here, because you didn't mention contacts, but I'm seeing conversations there.
Yeah, this number is super jacked up, so don't
number.
use this number. I wish
that's
we had
a lot.
Yeah, I wish we had 1.7 million conversations, but we didn't.
Almost 2 million.
So the 16, that's the dials, and then that's the conversations right there. But we didn't have that many dials. We didn't have that many conversations though.
Okay. All right. So let me. So where are you seeing price per closing on here?
So if we go into reports and we go to lead source ROI, and let's just look at 2020.
Okay.
So I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do lead source ROI. I want to see just our whole team's aggregate numbers.
Yeah. I guess more importantly,
there it is.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
So you can see the lead source on the left, and then you can see the number of transactions, and then the closed volume, and then you can see the cost per lead and cost per closing. So like for me, like you can see radio is super expensive. You know, we spent $119,000 on radio last year, and it only produced $234,000 in GCI. So about $8 million in volume. So our cost per closing was super unaffordable. It was $9,100 per closing. So we can make a data-backed decision saying radio is probably not working that well, right? And that could be a multitude of things. It could be the wrong message. It could be the wrong station. It could just be that it's not the right market for it. There's a whole bunch of different things.
Well, I'm curious on that, because I've wondered this before, like real question. So if you take that is an incredibly expensive lead. I agree, like cost per closing. But let's say that your team was focused on getting 3 deals for every closing you got off of this. That to me is almost part of the equation. Are you able to track that?
So it's hard to track that, because you have to drill down to really discover where that lead is truly coming from. But a lot of like referral business for us, if we get a referral, we don't track it back to radio. We would track it back just to PCSOI at that point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got you.
Just to keep things very simple for tracking.
So you would discontinue radio just based on this, right?
Yeah. So what we did is we actually changed the station we were on. We cut our contract in half, and we negotiated with the station. So our radio spend, it was about $12,000 a month. It went down to like $6,000 a month. So we were able to make a decision based off of that.
Okay, that's a great example of that. Yeah. I'm just trying to see closings. Realtor.com is a really good example. A lot of people are using. You had 77 closings from that. That's a really good number, and $1,600 cost per closing. Yeah,
I mean that's a good profitable cost per close right there in our market.
That's really great. It's fantastic. Looks like we've had Wailopo is at 35. Hard for me to see that. 35 closings at 795. So that's a win. Thing with Wailopo is that's almost Sphere, isn't it?
Well, Wailopo it's kind of a long-term play. I mean, it's really retargeting your current database. So, a lead that you bought 2 years ago that maybe is no longer getting a listing alert, or that's kind of dropped off your radar for following up with, it's going to put a dynamic listing alert back in front of them on social media. So it re-engages a lot of your database. I kind of view Wailopo as like an insurance policy in our leads to make sure that if we've dropped the ball on somebody, we're able to catch it,
Yeah, your pay-per-click's good. 47 closings at about 1,069. So these are great. These are great numbers. So that's how you would use that to make a decision. Let's move into, if you're comfortable with it, how you use the data to coach your agents, right? What that looks like, what those conversations look like, and what kind of how you're using that.
Yeah. So I'll just kind of offer some coaching guidance on how I would coach myself, just based off of 2020 numbers. So you can see, I set a lot of appointments. about 319 buyer appointments. You can see I met 87% of those people. So my set to meet ratio
Really
is pretty good. Like anything above 75%, I think is solid. When it drops below about 67%, I start getting a little bit concerned that maybe we're not having the quality of conversation we should be having, or maybe we're not qualifying that lead enough to make sure they really want the appointment as much as we want it. So that's how I would do it on the set to met. And then when I look met to signed, only 45%. So there's a lot of things going on there that I'd want to unpack. There's probably a lot of go and shows happening where like a lead calls in, they just want to go see a house and they don't get converted into a buyer consultation. Because I know for buyer consultations, I'll sign about 98% of people I meet in person. But if it's a go and show, it can be a lot harder to get to that appointment. So that's how I would do that. On the under contracts, I would look at what the process looks like to touch your A clients, like the people you've met and signed. What are you doing to stay in contact with that person throughout the week? And how are you bringing that person value to get them out looking at homes? Because we know that there's a very simple correlation between showing houses and somebody buying a house. Like you don't buy a house if you don't go look at houses, right? It's that simple. So I would look at that. And then the closed, I would that's really like the bust out ratio. And on our team, it's not really an issue. If it becomes an issue, then I would really look at if we're coaching the person right before we put them under contract. Like, do they know what to expect before it's going to happen in the escrow process?
I'm not going to ask how you can close more than you put under contract. I just want to.
From 2019 carryovers.
Yeah.
They were
that's right. That makes sense. Just kind of going back a little bit to this, I obviously teach and train our agents a lot. We have 1,700 agents here in Washington, and we do this every week. And so I am a big believer that our sales process in real estate, it really culminates in the agreement, in the buyer or seller signed agreement phase. Because after that, we go into, it's a different mode now. Now we're in more of a transaction mode. Let's get them into contract on a house. And I put the pressure on the agreement, right? The pressure has to be, therefore the pressure really has to be on the appointment. The appointment is the most important KPI. End of story, no conversation in real estate, right? And I'm looking at your numbers and it's the basis of everything really, right? 278, we had 319 set, 278 met, 126 agreements, right? 78 under contract, 80 closed, weird, but we know it's carryover. So, I just think that's the perfect, you're just looking at the perfect pipeline unfold in front of you right there.
Right. And I know, Vija, you and I have talked about, do we really care about conversations? And we do kind of care about conversations, but a lot of conversations have really migrated into a text, environment where people are texting back and forth a lot more than they are just calling. So tracking text is a very manual process in our world, and it's just not super easy to track that. And if it's not easy to track it, then inevitably it won't get tracked consistently.
Is this all automated tracks? So in other words, you have like a dialer that plugs in, and is there any manual tracking on this?
So yes and no. Like basically it's synced to our CRM. So you can do like a dialer upload where it uploads your last week's styles. And then when you set an appointment, it pushes that data into CSU. And then there's these forms in there that you fill out, when you at the different milestones. So when you set the appointment, there's a form to fill out. When you meet the person, there's a form to fill out. When you sign them, there's a form. When you pen them, there's a form. And that's really like an internal tool for communications for us on tracking things. And then also, triggering things like, when we penned a deal, it's the kickoff to our transaction coordination. That's her turn to step in and drive the transaction,
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The upfront stuff is really hard to track, and it really does have to be manual, and it really has to be daily. No one can remember conversations barely from their day, let alone the day before.
What I found is if you have like a conversation problem, you probably have an appointment set problem. And so like that number really tells me how you're spending your time. And also like it'll tell me, if you need coaching on role plays, on objection handlings, like there's something going on there if you're not hitting your appointment set benchmark. And that tells me all I need to know.
Yeah, and I do want to be crystal clear because I have a lot of my team leaders watching. I religiously track contacts every day, right? And, it's a little different. We're in a little bit of a different scenario, and we have a mechanism in place and layers of accountability. It is interwoven into our DNA. This daily reporting. Most people don't have the infrastructure that I have to do that. I didn't on my team. I couldn't have done what I do now on my team. There's just, I mean, I have staffs, we have, it's a different level. So it is very hard to track that. And so what I like about you is that you just said, look, this is realistic. Would it be nice to have a contacts? Yeah, maybe, but I'm not going to overshoot and fail on all of it. I'm just going to take the data that I can easily get and work with that. So I think that's great.
Yep, you nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, and in this setting, it's, like you guys were kind of saying, it's very, very easy to see if there ends up being a bottleneck in one of these little circles, right? If we're meeting a lot of people, but we're not signing a lot of them, or if we're setting a lot of appointments, but not meeting a lot of them, we're able to coach really specifically on that point of conversion, whether it's on the phone, whether it's in person, whether it's, like you said, the transaction side where we've signed them, I can't get them under contract. Because those are all different points of conversion. We're having different conversations. You're having different coaching sessions with your clients. So it's all things that we're able to see really clearly each week. Where do you need more tools? Where can we help coach you in that specific area to help push that business forward, right?
I know my answer, but I'm curious what your guys' is. Where do you see the most conversion challenge in this pipeline that we're looking at?
I mean, this year, it's not necessarily in this one, but this year has been from signed to under contract because, buyer's agents in the last 6 months have had to do 4 or 5 times the work to do the same exact job, right? That a couple of years ago. So, there's a lot of, I know Kelly Black commented in there, there's a little bit of buyer fatigue setting in sometimes. There's a little bit of buyer skepticism setting in. So what I've seen, and Michael might have a different, view on it, but definitely the signed to under contract has been a challenge, not because of coaching or, the clients, but just because of the market.
Yeah, I find almost always it's appointments set. And so if you can set an appointment, most likely agents can last the long haul. It's the agents I find, I call it the upfront, upfront conversion versus back end conversion problems. And if it's a front end conversion problem, I think that's a lot harder to solve for an agent.
It is. Teaching an agent how to set an appointment is a very difficult proposition. It takes months of practice and honing your skill, and then a daily commitment to improve it to actually hit your number.
So I think so you're showing a 65%. I'm assuming this is like a team aggregate.
This is just this year.
That's just you, because in recruiting, we try to beat 50%, just so you know. So 65% would be good in my world, right? And what I find too is the lead source is really dependent on that. Like you said, are there a lot of cold leads where you're doing a go and show? Is it if it was all sphere and referral, you'd be at a 98%, right? But you also have 230 appointments set to 150 met. And you just don't get to that kind of numbers without fallout. You're not doing enough numbers if you're at 98%, most likely.
Right. Yep, I think you nailed it.
Yeah, interesting. We have a few minutes left. Let me unshare this for you. Oh, there you go. You're unsharing it. We have a few minutes left. I can't thank you enough. I got so much out of this today. And with that said, I'm going to go through some questions, but do you guys have any last words before we dive into some questions? Any thoughts that I didn't ask you that I should have?
I mean, you're pretty dang thorough, Vija.
Yeah, you are.
Well, thank you. I'll take that as a thank you.
I guess I would say one thing. We're asked constantly how we possibly work together and stay married and have a
what? I meant to. If there was a point where I wanted to ask that, and then I got so carried away with my follow-up question. Can we talk about that really quick? How in the world do you do this? You've been through 3 career cycles together, building and developing restaurants and this. How do you tell us?
So one, communication. That's not the answer Michael would have, but communication and truly staying in each other's lanes and trusting each other. The number 3 is just to continue to choose each other each day, but really being able to trust that Michael's going to do everything that's in his lane and his AORs for the business, and then to have him trust me and that I'm doing mine, and we're both contributing at a high level and both producing at a high level and both just living who, you know, we say we are and walking our talk, so to speak. It builds a level of trust and understanding in the rhythms of life, and we like each other. Like we genuinely, we're friends too. Like we like each other.
And we do a weekly date night where we go out, you know, for dinner or something every Friday night, just the two of us to reconnect and communicate and catch up on the week.
So we had, you know, thank you, you guys. That was incredible. We had a lot of questions. We had like 14 or 15 questions in chats, and I would say that if, in large part, they're all the same thing, which is, you know, what do you recommend to a new agent getting started? What do you do for a new agent on your team that you think sets them up for success?
I think it's all habits. Like you have to build really strong habits that are going to give you the outcome and the consistency that you're looking for. In real estate, a lot of people, they want to get into real estate because they think that this lifestyle is about going to the driving range whenever you want, about sleeping in, and about just kind of doing whatever, whenever, however. And that's okay if you want to go sell 5 or 6 houses a year. If you want to kick ass and get it done, you have to build some iron habits. I'm talking very specific time blocks and how you spend your morning. My morning starts at 3:47 in the morning, and it's time blocked all the way until 1 o'clock, and then usually time blocks in the afternoon again. You have to be very intentional about the way your time is used. And for a new agent, spending 2 to 3 hours a day prospecting is mission critical, in my opinion.
Why 3:47?
Well, Jocko gets up at 4, and I got to beat Jocko by a little bit. So.
Jocko Willink?
Yeah.
And the Rock. Yeah. And the Rock.
Do you know him?
I've met him. Yeah, I've met him. He's a cool guy.
Awesome. All right.
I think the other thing about that, like, you know, on our team, when I do the partner training, right? So once a week, I sit down with all the partners and I'm working for their development. And like Michael said, like learning to actually have habits in your life is a learned behavior. Confidence is a learned behavior. Resilience, grit, those are all learned behaviors. Those are all things that you can build, and you can you know, read the books and apply the principles and do all the things to build those. So 75% of the training that we do for new agents literally is about personal growth and mindset. The other 25% is contracts and negotiation tactics, right? Focus on you, focus on the habits, focus on the lifestyle, focus on the mindset. The rest of it will come for sure.
I can't think of a better way to end it. I couldn't agree more. In fact, there is nothing I disagree with today. Everything you guys said was so spot on. And I think I'm going to listen to this again, despite listening to my own horrible voice. That's the first part of it. So I hope everyone.
You are a wonderful host. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on. And I hope everybody got as much out of this as I did. And I will see you guys next week, Wednesday at noon Pacific time, really like clockwork. It's very rare that we're not here. So we will see you guys next week. Thank you, Novaks. I mean that. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Thanks for having us, Vija. Catch you later.